The reason we only stock D'Addario strings is because D'Addario strings are perfect.
When people come in here, they think that we get them for free or something like that, but we don't. We have no other reason except for dependability and tone.
This is John Bohlinger with Premier Guitar. I'm with Rob McNelley, and we're in Soundstage Studio in Nashville.
Yeah.
Rob, I bet you've spent a lot of time right here.
I live here. Yeah. I have spent a lot of time here. Yeah, the studios around Nashville. Yeah.
Right. We were just saying before the cameras rolled that you've probably listened to your rig more through headphones than sitting next to your amp at this point.
No, zero idea what it actually sounds like.
Well, it sounds great. And for any of you out there that you've heard Rob's music, or you've heard his guitar on a ton of hit albums, and we're going to kind of get the behind the scenes. Yeah. Why don't we start with this right here? Tell me about this very cool gold top.
Yeah, well, this is something I've had for a while now. It's a 53 that I got. I traded a 62 SG to Victor Krause, incredible bass player. Your listeners probably already.
We did a rig rundown with him. Yeah, with the Krause and that nice gentleman from Led Zeppelin.
Oh yeah. What's his name?
They got a little band together. Yeah,
I saw that one. Now that so your viewers are familiar with him. But
Victor gave that up, huh?
So I had done a session at his house years before this, and I just forgot he had this guitar, and he was like, "Yeah, would you be interested in the trade?" And of course, you always want to hear about that option.
Sure, yeah.
And
everything.
I was going to trade him cash for cash, but he threw this in the mix, and I was like, "Yes, sir, I will take that." So we did a trade, and that's how I ended up with this. And I've used it so much over the years.
Now, is that the Joe Glaser bridge?
Oh, yeah. I should mention that. This is the Music City bridge. The bridge I had before these came out, I notched the spots, but I would have to redo it every year because it would start sitaring.
Sure.
But this bridge solves those problems. A lot of people already know about them, but if you don't know about them and you have a wraparound tailpiece guitar, you should invest in one of these for great intonation. And it also helped. The strings, I don't know if you can see this, but the strings a lot of times don't follow the magnets of the pickups on those wraparound bridges. This corrects that as well. And I mean, it's a tonal improvement.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Yeah.
Joe is just a genius, man. He's a problem solver.
I love him.
Yeah.
He's got a solution for anything, and he's up for the challenge. So,
right. Yeah, he likes the challenge. He just has this, driven by this intellectual curiosity, he just finds a solution. Well, so I guess other than the bridge, it looks all like it rolled off the Kalamazoo in 1953.
That is true. It did suffer a headstock break before I got it, so that's
not uncommon.
That's what probably helped it to be an even trade. Right. But the thing that I've always wondered about, and it's so cool, is how tall these knobs are.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know the history of how I very rarely ever see another gold top. They've got shorter knobs, but this has the tall knobs, and I love that about it.
Yeah, I know the real early ones, the early 52 and 53 had those huge knobs. I know, because actually I learned that from Jared James Nichols. Who's got a 52 with these huge knobs, and then they changed. And the other cool thing is how low the Gibson is.
Right.
On that.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I love because of the whole Jeff Beck Oxflood thing.
Yes.
Same.
Yeah, man.
Same deal.
That's cool. Yeah. So I mean, it's all original. I think there's one pot change somewhere in one of the tone knobs or pots isn't original, but I can't tell. And I mean, these pickups sound killer. They're balanced and the neck angle's right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these don't have the right neck angle for the over the bridge, the strings over the bridge. So it just plays great and it sounds great acoustically and plugged in,
What a great guitar.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I guess on a session, you hear the song and then you kind of look at what you got and let it kind of speak to you and decide.
Yeah.
Does this one go to the top of the pile often?
It does because, this is obviously, we use Telecasters a lot on a lot of the music around here, but sometimes if you still want that bigger, something a little fatter than a Tele, but somewhere that can twang,
right?
P90s is the next option to me.
Sure.
And this does that if you clean up the amp and you kind of just want a bigger than Tele sound, but reminiscent of that kind of twang.
Right. Well, Rob, it's interesting because we moved to town similar time, and remember when we first came here, they wouldn't let you cross a state line without a Telecaster. I mean, it was all Telecaster.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And it's just gotten heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, these kind of guitars, I have a lot of different P90 guitars at home, and they cycle through in this world as well, based on which one has the freshest strings.
Yeah, it's all, all very scientific.
That's how I decide if I've got a few different Strats. It's like, which one's still in tune? This one.
All right,
You're coming with me. But this guy has been on a lot of different recordings and.
Oh, that's great. So speaking of strings, what do you generally run?
Well, I like D'Addario strings. They're great people, and I've been using their strings for a long time. And I use anything from 10s or typically on things that I have, but I also have. Some guitars always have 11s. All my Strats pretty much have 11s. I want a little bit bigger sound on a Strat than with 10s. And then I go on up to like 12 gauge flat wound strings on some things, or
Oof, that sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but the sound is really why. You know, some guitars just don't respond to lighter string. I let the guitar I try different things on each guitar, and then once I like it, I leave it.
Sure. And I mean, everything you play is so under the microscope that you can get into that whole nuance and really listen. Okay. Well, that's a very cool start. What do you want to look at next?
You know what?
I'll roadie for you a little bit.
Let's look at, let's maybe start with that Strat back there.
Excellent choice. Okay, this old thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have a few different pre-CBS Strats, and they're all excellent. This is a 63. I bought this when I was out on the road with Bob Seger up in Chicago at Chicago Music Exchange, and it was just one of those guitars that I wasn't looking for.
Yeah.
And I just walked in, and there it was, and one of the other guitar players was looking at it, and when the second he decided he didn't want it, it was kind of glued to me for the next couple hours at the store, and I ended up walking out with it. So
nice. Okay.
Stock. It's all stock. I mean, I think I did refret it at some. Yeah, I've refretted it at some point. I've had this a few years now, but it's just,
Beautiful.
It sounds like Tom Petty to me.
Hey, let's hear a couple bars of
that.
Oh,
yeah, you want
plug
to?
That thing,
So, I always look for Strats with strong bridge pickups because I grew up playing my dad's 65 Strat.
Ooh.
And that bridge pickup, I thought all Strats sounded that fat.
Yeah.
So when I would go play other ones, that's when I started to realize what people were talking about when they would say, like, the bridge pickup sounds weak or whatever. so I didn't know that wasn't all Stratocasters, and so now I look for ones with stronger bridge pickups. They're out there, and when you find one, it's great. So that's the bridge pickup, tone knob all the way up. I do have the bridge pickup wired to the tone controller.
Kind of got to, right?
Yeah, you do.
That's a baffling. Okay, so the Strat is so interesting because it's so counterintuitive the way they design it with no tone control where you need it the most.
Yeah, I wonder.
2 tone knobs, none of them where you need it.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I wonder. I've always wondered why they didn't think of that, because that seemed like that would be the first thing that would stick out to people. They were putting them in people's hands, going, "What do you think of this?"
Right.
I would think that other people would be like, "I can't deal with how bright that is." But
right.
and
the 3-way switch. It took players, put it in 5 ways or whatever for like 25 years till Fender said, "Oh, we could do a 5-way."
I know. Yeah. It seems very obvious to us now, but I mean, like, this still has the 3-way switch on it. I just don't change it, because I can't. I'm in a controlled environment. I'm not live. I can get to it.
Find the sweet spot.
Yeah. But I mean, like. I mean, it's got a ring to it.
Man,
and it can get into the Hendrix. It can get,
that's great.
It's just all these pickups sound really good.
And they are really balanced, because a lot of Strats, that neck just overwhelms the bridge. Oh, that's great.
Exactly,
man.
Yeah.
That 3-tone sunburst, perfect.
I know. I still love the sunburst. I do have one custom color at home, but man, I've been a sucker for sunburst my whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter what guitar it's on.
Yeah.
It's just as cool.
Okay. That's okay. We're 2 for 2.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, let's keep the hits coming. What do you want to look at next?
Well, yeah, let's just go down the line, I guess. Hand me that Mule guitar.
Okay, this guy right here?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, look at that neck.
So this is new to me. This is there's a company, Mule guitars, Mule resonators. They make some of your people have probably seen these.
Sure.
I think Ariel Posen and Joey Landry.
Yeah, Joey Landry.
They play these guitars. This is kind of another baritone guitar, but I was working on Luke Combs' record that hasn't come. I guess the song for Twister came out. This guitar is on that song that's on that soundtrack. Ain't No Love in Oklahoma.
Oh, cool.
That's not this guitar, but I played. The producer brought his.
Oh, really? He had one.
Jonathan Singleton had one. He was like, "Hey, man, I wanted you to try this guitar out." That's a really bad impression of Jonathan. So I'm sorry, but and man, we ended up using it on a lot of the tracks on stuff that'll be coming out on Luke Combs. But this was one of them, and immediately I emailed the company and got in touch with them and ordered one, and it came in. And so I've been using this as it's just kind of like a more ballsy version of like a low-tuned guitar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's just got this attitude to it that like my Jerry Jones baritone or my Jeff Sen baritone don't. They can get there, but this is like just got a different sound. The metal body. I don't even know what these pickups are. I don't even care because they just sound good. You put a little wiggle on it.
Oh yeah.
It's like. I mean, it's just. So I love this thing. It's new to me, and I use it all the time. It's just funky.
What do you keep it tuned to?
All over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, I tune it down to like baritone range, like
B is where it's.
This is it. This is 2 whole steps down from standard now, so C to C.
Wow.
But that's probably just what I was using it on last.
Right.
But I go B or down to A even. I mean, like
so
a
it'll
baritone.
handle. Yeah.
It'll do it.
Yeah.
It'll do it. These strings are really thick. I don't even know they feel like they're 13s or
Wow.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, those Danos, when you bring them down, you can't lean into it like a guitar like that.
Thin pick.
Yeah. Oh.
I go to the thinnest pick I can find. I have some 60s that if I have to go down that low,
Yeah.
it's
Okay, that's interesting because so many players are really loyal to whatever their pick is.
Yes.
You know, like if you're a jazz 2 guy, you're a jazz 2
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
You know, but do you find yourself switching it up quite a bit?
I do. It's mainly the gauges. I mean, I like these Dunlop Ultex picks, these clear ones. I don't know why I started using them or how I even discovered them, but I probably just borrowed them from somebody. And this is an 88, which is the thickest that I really go. I like the 73 for rhythm, and then if you tune down or you're playing or sometimes there's a sound to a really thin pick when you want to attack the strings hard but you just don't want them going sharp at all when in the attack or whatever, or sometimes like with a compressor on, if it's heavily compressed, like an 80s clean compressed sound on a chord, that thin pick is part of the sound to me. That I don't know if that's true across the board for other people, but I feel like I sound more like that sound in my head of like some of those ching.
Right.
Kinda,
Yeah.
there's some extra something about it.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. I love that.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Okay.
What do you want to look at next?
Let's go to this Telly. This Telly has got a interesting story to it.
Okay.
So
Rob,
this guitar was my dad's.
oh, okay. Now that's cool.
That's really cool. He bought this and a 65 Strat at Gruen Guitars in 1981. He was down here making a record. He was a musician. Well, a songwriter, really. He had a band. And anyway, he came home one night and there was this cool black rectangular case, not the original case. And he said, "Hey, check this guitar out. This is a really good guitar." And I remember opening it up, and I didn't know what I was looking at. I was probably 9 years old.
Yeah.
And I just something about it sent me off. I was just like, "What the hell is that? I don't even know what this is, but I already know I love this guitar." Yeah, right. And so I took it to my bedroom and just started playing around with it, and whenever he would go on tour, he'd have to come find it, Yeah,
right.
Okay, so fast forward, my dad passed away when I was probably 17, and by that point, he had kind of given me the 65 Strat, because he just never, I don't think he was a Strat guy. I think he just got it, because he thought it was cool or whatever. Well, this is a 55 Telly, the body's refinned, but this guitar wasn't around when he passed. So I got some of his guitars and amps and I didn't know what happened to it. Well, when I moved to Nashville, the producer that produced his records back in the 80s is Paul Worley. Huh. So Paul Worley, I asked around about this guitar, if anybody remembered him having it in the studio or anything like that. And they're like, "I think Paul Worley bought that guitar from him." And I was like, "Wow, okay, that's cool." Well, I end up meeting Paul Worley. I'm new to town. He knew my dad pretty well, so we get introduced, and I said, "Man, I'm new to town. I'm a broke-ass musician. I cannot afford one more thing. But if you ever, do you have that guitar?" He said, "Yeah, I do." And I said, "Well, if you ever get rid of it, please, just contact me. I'd love to have that back at some point. I don't know what we could work out, but I know I can't afford it." So 6 months went by. And our mutual friend called me one day, Cliff Aldridge. He called me and said, "What are you doing tonight? Stop by the house if you can." So I stopped by the house, and I walk in. Now, this time, there's a brown early 60s case, the brown Tolex cases.
Yeah. The cool ones.
I see the Fender. I see it, but I didn't really pay attention. You know, I mean, it wasn't weird to see a guitar there.
Sure.
And he's like, well, open the case. You know, and I'm like, okay. And I this was completely off my radar. And I opened it, and it was deja vu back to the first time I opened the case. There it was. And I was like, holy shit. So there's a lot of emotion attached to this moment and all that just because I'm looking at it again. And,
right.
And I'm like, wow, you know, this is crazy. And he goes, well, Paul called me and told me to go over to his house and get it and bring it over. He wants you to have it. He thinks you should have this back.
God.
Paul is that way.
What
I gotta say,
great dude.
Paul Worley shows up a lot in places for me career wise. Well, he's been a really important figure to me. But anyway, so that's how I got this guitar back, and
isn't that great?
It is great. I mean,
man, that is a feel-good story.
Unbelievable. And so I've used it, you know, most days since I've had it, and that was probably close to 30 years ago. I can't believe it.
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing. Well, and you know, I mean, Paul is such a great guitar player. He obviously loved it.
Yeah.
And he knew what was right.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's the coolest, one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, especially gear-wise, or it's as far as like, you know, just kind of just being reunited with this instrument has meant so much to me over the years.
Wow, man. Okay, well, let's hear this twang machine.
Okay, all right, so.
Oh yeah, see, you can't.
I know you.
Yeah,
what are you gonna do with the telly?
It's
right.
like you can't help it. It's so perfect.
But like, check out the neck pickup. You know this. A lot of telly neck pickups just don't have this kind of.
Well, didn't they do a weird wiring back then
did.
too? Some
and
kind
it's
of
obviously
mud.
been, yeah, this is modernized. I mean, you know.
God, it sounds great.
You know, it's a great R&B guitar. I mean, that's the neck pickup. You don't usually get that. I mean, it's just really, it's a lot. And I mean, I don't know. This guitar vibrates more than any other guitar that I have. It's like sometimes I'll be playing a chord at the end of a song, like, and it's just vibrating up against my belly here.
Isn't that a great feeling?
It's a great feeling. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that guitar.
Okay, well that's too cool.
Yeah.
God. Okay. All right, Rob, so far
they're
all awesome. What are we looking at next?
Well, we're going to talk next about the obligatory guitar I bought from Bukovac.
Oh, everybody's got at least one.
Right? Yeah. I've got I don't know. I don't know if I have. I have amps. I have other stuff I've bought from him. But this is the crown jewel that I bought from him. This is a 1959 mono 355.
Wow, cool.
And I didn't know this until just recently that they only made 175-ish of these in 1959.
Wow.
Because they were all stereo with the Baritone switch.
Right.
But the mono ones, they made very few, under 200 of them. I don't know the exact number. I've seen different things, but all original, totally stock, PAFs, and it's the first PAF guitar that I ever had, and you know, they sound they're different. I don't know why, but they are different. Modern humbuckers. We'll get into modern humbuckers here in a second, but there is a magic to these, and this guitar is no exception. It sounds amazing, you know. Anyway. There's a bite to the bridge pickup that I think is the PAF thing, or at least that's. You know, there's just This is a guitar I use an awful lot.
Oh,
on
I
stuff. I mean, it's a great slide guitar. In fact, this isn't the one, but I have another 355 that's what I played Need You Now.
Oh,
the
cool.
Slide solo on Need You Now.
Oh yeah.
And these kind of just have a thing. I've sort of discovered I'm not necessarily a 335 guy. The 355 has a different tone to it. I think because of the ebony fretboard, maybe.
Right.
That brings a little bit of a snap to the note. I feel like when I play a 335, they compress out, or the ones I've had. Maybe I still need to find the one, but I don't keep them. This
Right.
one I come back to all the time.
Right. Yeah. Well, no need to find another one.
Well,
one
that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not searching,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's kind of like love. You know, they just find you,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
Bukovac, he does a great thing. He when he's selling a guitar, he usually knows who should have it. He has I feel like he knows who would appreciate what he's about to sell.
You know, that's interesting. A friend of mine bought a really cool old Telly from him, and Tom said, "I'm selling this man because I feel like I don't want to, and I need to not have it have a hold on me, and you should really have it."
That, you know, I used to think he was just a really good salesman.
Yeah.
And he probably is, but
still makes it
honestly,
true, yeah.
I've watched him put instruments in the right people's hands.
Yeah.
And that's what he did here. I mean, he does that classic thing, you know, take this home for a few days.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you're going to fall. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Within 5 minutes, I was like,
Oh yeah.
damn it, I didn't want to spend this kind of money on this, but now I can't not have it. You know, I was
Right.
like, what do I do? But anyway, we worked out a deal. I was able to get it, and it's been one of my famous guitars to producers and
Yeah.
the like. You know, it's.
God, isn't that great? Yeah.
I love it when they get to know some of your guitars and they say, "Don't play that one.
Yeah.
I like that one."
Yeah.
On this or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Okay. That is very
Yeah.
cool. Love that.
Yeah, man.
Okay. What are we looking at next?
So, well, the next one in line is that gold top. So let's go on to the next Les Paul.
Okay. There you go.
So, you know, okay, so I didn't know I had this in my gig bag today. That's sort of a problem. The whole fresh strings thing.
Yeah.
So I thought I had my 68 Les Paul Custom here, which is probably the Les Paul used the most.
Yeah.
But you get to a session some days and you go, oh yeah, I forgot I put this one in the gig bag because that one needs strings, whatever. But I do love this guitar. This is a collector's choice Rick Nielsen
Oh, cool.
Les Paul.
Yeah.
Now, I have a few different reissue Gibson humbucker guitars. I like Tom Holmes pickups. That's what's in here. I have a relationship with those pickups. They're the closest thing that I can find to what I think of as a PAF sound. And they have the touch sensitivity of all that. And he lives right here in Jolton. I've been buying his pickups for at least 20 years. And I've driven out to his house and picked him up. And he gives me a tour of the factory. And it's so much fun to do that. And he's a great guy. And he makes, in my opinion, some of the best. My search ended, let's put it that way, for PAF style humbuckers.
Good.
You know.
Yeah. What a relief, huh?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. There could be other. I'm sure there's other. I've played other things that sound really awesome, but I'm not always on this. Once I find what works, that's it. I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't.
Sure.
You know. Yeah, I say that, and then we all buy something else, or convince ourselves that we got to try this. I never heard that.
Right.
You know, but yeah, this is a guitar that my friend Ryan Warner. Do you know Ryan Warner?
Yeah, of course.
Like, I love him.
I've been trying to do a rundown on Ryan.
Oh.
He's a moving target.
He is. But I'll tell you what, man. when he calls and tells me there's a good guitar to check out, and that's what happened here. He told me that I should go down. I bought this at Carter, and he told me to go down there and check this out. And he was right. I mean, the neck feels very authentic, you know, and just it's a light one. I don't always go for light. I don't care about that, but this happens to be a light one that sounds good, you know. I mean, it's, you know, it gets into that, you know,
Yeah.
It just rings true. This one's always ready to jump out at you. I like that.
Very cool.
Oh.
And you've got, of course, kind of a redundancy of extra things just in case, and some weirdo things. But I know you've got like this.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hear about this thing.
Oh yeah. We should check this out.
Love the Rick Nielsen.
Yeah. Which, okay, so there's been a trend lately with these rubber bridge guitars in Nashville. This one, I usually tune down, but it's not tuned down for whatever reason. It's probably just because it's whatever I used on the last. These are usually very effective tuning down. I tune this one down probably about 1.5 steps sometimes. So, let's see, the rubber bridge guitar. That means this bridge is rubber. And a friend of mine here in town, there are a lot of people that make these now, but a friend of mine named Sam Hawksley finds these old guitars, rehabs them, puts this pickup in there.
Do you know what the
I'll ask him. I don't know.
Some blade humbucker.
It's a blade humbucker, yeah. I'll ask him and I'll get that info to you. But yeah, this bridge. So they're flat wound strings. And so if you get into some get a little bit of reverb going. I'll put even a little bit. And you get kind of this. I don't know. Sort of, I like them for arpeggios, like arpeggiated parts or. It's just got a very unique sound.
So cool.
So there's that, but there's also this other thing about them because of the attack and flat wound strings and the rubber bridge. Like if you've got an aggressive rhythm part that you want to do, like double it up with this. If you double that with like a Les Paul or something on the other side, it does a real thing.
Huh.
So,
well, isn't that interesting? These sonic trends like that. Like, I don't know, like 20 years ago when Keith Urban played that Get Joe, suddenly everybody had to buy one.
I know.
In Nashville because it just came up.
I know. Yeah, it does. I have one at my house.
Right.
I don't give a fuck about banjos.
But it's a similar kind of trend, though. When something like that pops, it's almost like you kind of have to have it just in case.
You do. I mean, that's what a lot of this is about. I mean, my home base is a Fender amp and a Fender or Gibson guitar, but I don't make my records for a living.
You're right. And it's that the customer's always right kind of thing. You want to try and give them what they're asking for. Yeah, in fact, somebody's telling me about a Puka back there where he had to play something like that. And he's like, okay, but don't fucking tell anybody.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about their name being in big letters on the record and mine being really in small letters. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that is a cool thing to have in the arsenal.
It is. It comes up more often than I thought it would, but it's a nice thing to have. It's a yeah.
And I love that your buddy is like repurposing these old toy, basically. You know, this used to be, you could find them in garage sales all the time.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Yeah, well, he still does. I mean, they're usually need a lot of repair. I'm sure he did a lot to this. But to get this to intonate right and all of that, I mean, it's a lot of work. He did a great job on this one. And I played others that he's done because other players have them now, and they're always spot on. It's great, you know.
Okay, very cool. Okay, well, what do you say we talk about these amps? And let me give you more of a normal-ish guitar.
Oh, yeah.
What would you like to taste test some of this stuff with?
Oh, man. You know what? Let's just do the Telly because that's a pretty.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's always a good.
Because they got it right the first time.
They got it right the first time.
What strings are you running?
These are D'Addario NYXLs.
And the D'Addario NYXL.
But they're D'Addario strings, and I've been using those since forever, and I love them.
D'Addario strings as well.
D'Addarios.
Right.
D'Addario. I've been using D'Addario. I'm a fan of D'Addario.
Started using these D'Addarios.
I like the D'Addario NYXLs.
These are D'Addario, and I got the NYXLs on here.
Yeah.
So amp-wise, you've got a nice pile of amps over here, and your cab is being mic'd and sent through the studio in their room. Mm-hmm. So let's hear kind of the setup.
Okay, I'll start with, this is my main amp. It's a 65 Deluxe Reverb. I use this probably more these days than anything else, but it's got a mod that I'll tell you about here in a second. But this is the classic reverb channel. That's the verb on the amp, which I've always loved. I mean, it's just nothing sounds or reacts like that, you know. And you know, if you get let's dial the reverb back just a little, but if you get, you know, a deluxe reverb up into a healthy volume level, knock the bass back a little bit, it just kind of gets. It gets pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Now, where do you usually run your treble?
Man, that was just between 5 and 6.
Yeah.
But I typically run it on 5.
Yeah.
I don't know. I run the amp a little bit brighter than I think, and then I start rolling the tone off a little bit on the guitar.
Sure.
That seems to be my favorite thing to do. Now, I had a mod done to this amp, and it was done over at Jeff Himes' shop.
Sure.
I think Nick Rose did it over there. And it's a mod that supposedly Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick did to his deluxe reverb. You know, and that's apparently what he recorded all the Cheap Trick stuff with. I don't know much about that part of it, but that's what I was told. And so it's not full on getting into a Marshall, but it's leaning you towards more gain.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I have all these pedals, but I like having the gain coming from, as much of it coming from the amp as possible. This is just a little extra. I don't use a lot of gain from pedals, but that's just where I go. You know, it's got a little bit more hair on it, you know.
Great to have both those flavors in one
Exactly.
amp. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the deluxe reverb. It's pretty, other than the mod, it's stock. And then I'm really old school. I have to switch these speaker cables to get to the other amps. I don't have an amp switcher.
Yeah.
Because this is a session trick. When they want a different amp, if you have an amp switcher, you can go to it immediately, and you don't have any time to think about what you're going to play. This gives me time to go, what am I going to play?
Right,
Hang on 1 second.
Right.
I'll be right with you. And, you know, so let's see. We'll get into this Marshall. I should also say I'm using the brown box.
Love the brown box.
Yeah, I love it too, and I know.
So are they all running through that one brown box?
Yes. Well, today, since I have them all on at the same time, I picked a couple of these to not run through it because it only does 2. But yes, if I was on a session, I wouldn't. I use it on everything.
Yeah.
You know, Cassandra, who owns the company now, she's awesome. Her boyfriend's
great violinist
awesome.
too. And,
yeah, she's a great musician, and they've been really good to me. And this is worthwhile having. It will save your tubes and all that. So, okay, I have a bunch of higher wattage Marshalls at home. Plexis, I have 100 watts and 50 watts. In the studios around here, oftentimes we're recording in, our cabinets are in these closets. Well, I can't get the sound of a 100-watt Marshall here like I can at my house. Like I have a big room in my studio at home where I can mic these up, put a room mic on, and get the famous sound that you hear. But when you stick a 412 or even a 212 in these little in these closets, the sound builds up like in the low end.
Right. Yeah.
And I've had engineers tell me like, man, that sounds amazing, but I'm having trouble getting it to be like that to tape, you know. So I tried going down to 50-watt Marshalls, and that works a lot better. I get there with my 50 watts. But then I got this the 20-watt Studio SV20. I can't remember what it's called. I think that's what it's called. They came out a few years ago. This is the Plexi one that they did. And this just helps me get to that compression and the sound of a Marshall that we all think of in a recorded environment.
Yeah.
Easier. The lower the wattage, sometimes it just records better. And I found this to be true, you know, in a lot of cases. You know, it's just got that Marshall thing. I jump the channels. You know, it's every time I use this amp, people want to know what it is, and they think it's an old one because it sounds really good, and we all think new stuff can't sound good.
Right.
This sounds good.
Yeah.
It really does. They come from the factory, bright, like an old real Marshall, but I had Jeff Heim change the value of the bright channel just a little bit to knock off the super bright stuff that Marshalls always have. So
isn't that a weird thing though, when you buy gear and then you have to bring it in and have it tweaked a little bit? I mean, it happens all the time, but it's kind of a weird feeling.
Yeah.
Like you got it, it's like,
Yeah. I mean, I think probably every amp I've ever bought has been that way.
Right.
Like it's about 90% of the way there, or I wouldn't buy it.
Right.
But then, you know, there's little things after you live with it for a few weeks or take it to a few sessions, you start hearing it in the environment you want to use it in, and it just helps to get them massaged a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's different tubes or just whatever, you know.
Right, whatever it takes. Yeah.
I mean, I like stock things, but, you know, changing some tubes out that just sound better with that amp, you know.
Right.
It just makes a difference, you know.
Yeah,
every
totally.
little thing.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. But that's that Marshall.
Yeah,
that's what I use for that
great
kind of thing.
Okay, and then what else you got?
Okay, so we've got an old matchless, early matchless. And this thing,
Okay, what model is that?
That's okay. It's the SC30 single 12 combo, but it's the same head as the DC30 or the HC30.
Okay.
I have a head version of it, but this is what I've been bringing lately. You know, it just I don't know why. It's all the same thing. I like the turquoise on here.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't know. So I always use the EF86 channel, and this kind of works. I work for some people sometimes that if I'm getting the comment from the control room, like the producer saying, I love the part, I love what you're playing, I love the tone is almost there. Is there any way to get this a little more, have more clarity or hi-fi sound? You know, just a little bit, maybe brighter or spankier or shimmery, and get a little bit more sparkle in the tone. I move to this, and 90% of the time, that is what it does.
Huh.
To me, like you just hear those upper end transients going. It tightens up the low end. But it can also rock in a way like when you're doubling single coils. Man, the noise is crazy.
Part of the sound. Yeah.
I mean, that's not what typically I think of when I think of a matchless.
Right.
But man, it'll go there if you want to double up some rock guitar parts or something, like the Marshall on one side and then that on the other side. Even with the same guitar, it just kind of gives it this rich thing.
Right. Do you find yourself doing that often, doubling parts with different tones to kind of invigonate?
That's one of my favorite things to do in the studio. I love doubling solos. I love doubling. I love doubling parts that like one's clean, one's just a little bit dirtier. I would rather do that than add effects in some ways, because it always spreads that sound a little bit more without having to go to a delay pedal or a reverb pedal. You know, it finds its very concise place in the mix and doesn't interrupt anything else that's going on. Yes, I double stuff all the time. I love it. I mean, slide guitar parts, whatever. It's one of my favorite sounds, you know. Yeah.
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 Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Okay, love that. And then you've got two basements.
Well, yes. This bottom one, it's being finicky right now. It needs to get into the shop. But I'll show you this other bassman.
Yeah.
This is a 64. It's the same thing as the white basements with the white knobs.
Yeah.
But in 64, you probably know this. These are called tuxedo basements. It's the same circuit as the white basements. It just cosmetically different because they started the production line before they changed the circuit. So they use the white cupcake knobs with the black panel and black Tolex.
Yeah, they're cool. That's very cool.
So, yeah, and that's another thing. I got this amp from Ryan Warner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was starting to use a bassman on everything. There was a long period where I closed back 212 cabs were the thing on every recording. And I started using a bassman head. I have two of these, and I needed a backup because what happens a lot of times is like with our cartage companies, the people who deliver our gear to the session is you've got that hour lunch break, and you might be at one studio in the morning and a different one in the afternoon. So you kind of end up in this situation where you got to have duplicates of stuff because they're leapfrogging your rig for you. Like you might have one studio in the morning, a different one in the afternoon, and then a different one at 6 o'clock, and they've got to be able to get that ready to go. You know, so all the really essential stuff I need two of. And Ryan Warner was selling his, and he's he's regretted it ever since. And that's my favorite part of the story, Bryan. But this is just a really good, the great thing about Bassmans is they take pedals great.
Right.
Or you can crank them up and they rock.
Sure.
But it's a great bass tone. It really does work with anything, like, they're somewhere between the fidelity of a matchless and maybe a deluxe reverb. They hold together in the low end better than a deluxe reverb will. But you get it on up there, and you're we get right into it.
Right. Now, what speakers are you running everything through?
Everything we're hearing today is through this car cabinet.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 112. It's a Warehouse ET65 speaker. I do have a closed back 212 that I still bring to all my sessions that have old Celestion 65s. So the Warehouse is basically a Celestion 65, their take on that. I love all those speakers, but that's what we're hearing with all these amps. It's just a 112 open back. That cab is the same size as a deluxe reverb. I used to carry 2 deluxe reverbs to sessions and use one as the speaker and one as the head by me, so I could
right.
And that got a little old. So I found these. I bought a car amp that came with these extension cabs that sounded just like my deluxe reverb. If you're just using them for the speaker. So that's why I bought those and gravitated towards that.
Cool.
Much lighter.
So do you ever find yourself like on a session where you plug into just one amp and ride it for the whole thing? And what is that amp generally if you're going to ride one?
Deluxe reverb these days. Yeah, and especially on a demo session. I mean, if you're on a record, you're moving through the songs a lot slower.
Right.
So you can take time and mic up a different cabinet, or I might throw a Tweed Deluxe in the car and like mess with that. You have time to explore those.
You're
things.
right there, but on demos, it's
demos.
Oh God, get them done quick.
You're burning minutes by asking the engineer to come and change that can all be done because all the engineers are so talented and fast around here, But yeah, it's not something I want to think about. Generally for demos, you're just throw and go. And that's where I use more of the pedals for my overdrive instead of I get the level set for them in there and then rely a little bit more on pedals as opposed to, hey, I'm going to turn this all of a sudden up and crush you in there,
Right.
I don't know, So I stick with that. That's home base, the deluxe reverb, and then on record dates, that's when I really take time and explore all these options before I'm playing the next part, maybe.
Isn't that kind of a frustrating thing as a guitarist? You get a track that feels good, and the bass player and drummer go have a sandwich. or check emails. Eat, drink, whatever, and you're like overdubbing,
we get heavy lifting a lot of the days,
right?
Because you're putting, if you're the only guitar player, which is more common these days than it used to be. Used to be when I first started doing sessions, it was a lot of times it was 2 guitar players, and then budget shrank, whatever led to this, where oftentimes the only guitar player, and that's some cool aspects to it, but you're in the chair all day.
Oh man, it's exhausting.
I mean, you're chasing down every part they want you to do, the solos,
A lot of work.
I mean, it keeps me. I don't get to gossip as much.
Right. I know bass players who just it's like, shut up and play your note.
Right. The snacks are always gone by the time I get there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very cool. Well, let's talk about the last ingredient, your pedal board.
Yeah.
Take us boot to bonnet on this thing. Now, Who built it?
XTS built this pedal board.
They're the guys.
They're the guys, man. They know everything. And I'm going to apologize to them in advance for this one thing. I had a unit go down and had to just throw something in here. This is not as they built it in one area. Yeah. We'll get to that. It's at the end of the chain.
When they make a pedal board for you, you feel kind of weird about changing it.
I know.
like mine, I changed some stuff, and I'm like, now it's not as good.
I've tried a couple of times to change little things, and I've always gone back to what we did originally with this.
Right.
And we're in the long process of me building a newer board, which is why I didn't feel compelled to I've been slammed lately, and this Line 6 M5 quit working on me in the middle of a session.
Oh, right.
So I just had to throw something else there for now, and so I apologize to Barry. He's probably going to see this and go like, "That's not my work," But anyway, so they built this. So I'll try and get the signal chain accurately. Let's see. We go in through this little junction box, which starts the signal with this basic audio Scarab Deluxe fuzz pedal. That's been on my boards for a long time. I have 3 or 4 different boards, and that's usually the go-to fuzz that I like. I have a million other fuzzes that I love, but this one it can do a lot of different fuzz sounds.
Yeah.
And it's got tone knobs that I can help the fuzz fit in better with a dense track. And then that goes to the original RC Booster. Have you ever heard of any of those pedals? That nobody ever has those.
Oh, RC Boosters, yeah.
I'm totally kidding.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
So I do use it a lot of the times, like other people around here use it, or other people I see, as a clean boost, but I actually like the overdrive on it. I will crank that gain up. It kind of sounds amp-like to me, like a Fender on about 5 or 6 or something.
Yeah, well, and because you're getting such a great, like, tubey, almost dirty tone anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a little push.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's great. Now, we go to, I believe, the Ibanez Distortion pedal.
Yeah.
I have been using this pedal for probably 25 years.
Before they were crazy, right?
Yeah. I have a lot of these because they aren't the most sturdy thing in the world. The jacks go out. The switches are dodgy. The pots.
They had no idea they were going to be around forever.
Right.
I think when they made them, they just like were making a...
Yeah.
They had no idea they would become a standard of the industry.
And when they came out, they probably were more sturdy, but now they're old. You know?
Right.
But so I discovered that pedal when I was when I used to play with Delbert McClinton through Leroy Parnell.
Oh.
And I bought these every time they came up on eBay with a buy it now, and I think I probably own like 15 of these things, and I bought them all for like under $100 because nobody wanted them. Yeah. Well, fast forward to when I started getting session work. I wasn't the only player using this, but this is the pedal that I used on everything, like all the early Lady A records, all the just all the records that I was playing on at that time. I just use this all the time, and I get a lot of questions about this because they're so expensive now. Other people are making good versions of this. I'd like to show you these.
Oh yeah, let me show
so
these.
The white one, the 2 white ones.
Okay, two white ones.
White pedals.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I get asked about this a lot. What is a good version of the Distortion that you don't have to spend whatever $600 to $800 on? So my buddy Greg Droman makes the Karma.
Great producer.
Yeah,
and Fleetwood Mac produced Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah. And so he found out about this pedal because I got hired to play on a Randy Houser record that he was engineering, and he kept going, "What are you using? What are you using? I love that tone." And I kept showing him this pedal. Well, he went out and bought one. And then when he saw that they were starting to get expensive or hard to find, he thought, well, I'll just make them. And so he modeled this. He kept sending me versions of it, and he finally got it. This sounds great.
No, that's the bass. He made the bass one and the guitar one, and the bass.
Yes.
Yeah, and the bass one you feel is a little closer.
Oh, is this the bass one? Ha! I didn't even notice that I grabbed the bass one. I like them both.
Yeah,
that is the truth.
I've got them both too, and I can't choose. I know they're different, but I don't really prefer one to the other.
I don't either. But I meant to show you the regular one, but I guess this is the one that's migrated to my my case here. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Greg, you nailed it on both of them.
Yeah.
Good for you, buddy.
You did. I mean, and he also makes a great Nobles clone now too, and those have gotten insanely expensive. And then this other guy reached out to me and wanted to do the same thing. He was like, I know you use the Moss Distortion a lot. I make this thing, and this is the Apollo Audio Devices Sawdust. And man, I gotta say, this sounds great too and captures the essence of what that pedal does. And then if you do have an old Moss Distortion that you just want to rehouse, there are lots of people here in Nashville that do those. I have a couple of mine rehoused by Justin Butler. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I know his name, but I haven't met him.
He does a great rehouse on these things, and it doesn't lose the tone, and it's more sturdy. So yeah. There are options now,
right?
So that's a good thing.
That's cool. I love seeing Greg's pedal.
I know. What a great guy.
Well, and I think the fact that he's such a great engineer, it's just a testament to his ears. He's heard a lot and knew what he wanted.
That's it. But yeah, I mean, the Moss Distortion has gotten pretty famous on people's pedal boards now.
And the funny thing is, after this interview, they'll be even harder to find.
Maybe so.
That's true. I mean, this stuff actually, it does affect stuff.
Yeah. I know.
Somebody will mention something that's kind of an outlier, and suddenly they're gone from reverb.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've experienced that on the losing end many times.
Right.
Okay, so I've got this sort of a Klon type of pedal. It's made by Arc Effects. And it's I've had this for a long time, but the difference between this and other ones that were maybe out at the time, there's probably a million of these that do this. It has a bass boost switch, which is more felt than heard. It's very subtle, but it does make a little bit of a difference. I had an original Klon back in the day for about 2 hours. I loved it, I guess, but a friend of mine loved it more than I did and talked me out of it, and whatever. But anyway, all these years later, I do appreciate that sound more now as I record, because it does have a different thing than a tube screamer or something else that when you can't quite hear your sound in the headphones because maybe there's a little bit too much low end or something, this changes that, shifts it over. It seems to shift it over a little bit to where there's just a little less of the low end, and it just shoots through the mix a little bit.
Isn't that interesting how it's like it's usually about what you take away, right?
That's right. I mean, I was telling somebody the other day, I was doing a session with a younger guitar player who kept going, how are you getting so forward in the mix? And I said, well, a lot of times I dump the bass all the way off on my amp. Do you ever do that? And I think as guitar players, sometimes we need to hear that's what somebody did,
right? Because
we don't think that's what we should do.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, it's going to sound too thin. But man, I can't tell you how many times that's the problem.
Right.
Dump the bass, get rid of the low end, and then all of a sudden, by itself, it sounds thin, but in the track, it fits.
Yeah, that's the trick. Because in the room, it might sound amazing.
Yeah. And a lot of times taking less gain sounds more powerful.
Right.
AC/DC didn't have a lot of
I
gain.
was just thinking about that. They were not that dirty.
The ultimate example of that.
Yeah.
Powerful sound, but not in a rock band.
The rock band.
The rock band. I don't know if they did a ballad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, cool. Okay,
so there's
what's the final dirt pedal?
Okay.
Here's what I propose. Let's hear this final one and then go hear them all down the line.
Run through so you got okay, so the Analog Man, King of Tone.
Yeah.
Very popular out there in the world.
Now very hard to find.
Luckily enough, I started onto these before they were very hard to get, and I have a few of them because I need them on different boards to go places. But I love this pedal. I was always I'm not a tube screamer hater. I've always liked tube screamers and dislike them at the same time for a lot of the same reasons that a lot of people will cite. This kind of scratches that itch in a better way for me with more amps. Sometimes I still pull out a tube screamer at home, but here in the studio, this is where I go for anything in that kind of gain range. So that's the gain part of this.
You know, and it seems like that's the toughest pedal, right? To get that sort of clean, sort of dirty thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so song dependent.
Yeah.
Like every single song, that's what I cycle through more than anything else. Like I usually know the guitar, usually know the amp, and if I need a little bit more hair that I want from a pedal, I have these all hooked up to on-off switches.
Oh yeah. Well, let's start with that fuzz and let's unleash hell there.
All right, let's see what we get.
First
and of course, it does this thing where it's not working. The switches get dirty on these. Okay, so that's cool, but this has a bias knob, and I use this a lot. So like with a little bit of slapback on it, like it gates out.
Oh, Rob, that's great.
Isn't that cool?
That is so weird.
It does that, and that's cool for like a part in a song.
Right.
A little ear candy.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so that's the fuzz.
That's the fuzz. Here's the here's my bass tone.
Yeah.
Somebody should make a shirt for guitar players. Here's my bass. So clean to the amp. Here's the RC boost with a little bit of... If you notice, I don't have a compressor on this board. I kind of use this a little bit like a compressor. It does something that a compressor kind of does without compressing it.
Yeah.
So that's more the traditional way you would use it, cleaner side of it. But if you want to get into like something that's a little bit more like bluesman territory or like I'm not even in the reverb amp. I'm dumb. Okay, all right, here we go.
Well, you've got a lot of amps going on.
Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff going on. Oh, that's good. It's like Tony Joe White. That's cool.
And I love Tony Joe White. That's some great stuff. So and then let's go to the Mostortion. That's just a nice straight ahead overdrive.
Right, very subtle.
I use it mostly that way, but you can get into like some more. it's just never, the clarity is what I like about that pedal and makes it so usable. It's never in the way of anything. And then if it is, you've got treble, mid, and bass knobs that you can cycle through or change. So here's the sort of Klon pedal. Not too different than the Distortion on the settings it's on. But but you can get a little more teeth there, and then the Analog Man, the yellow side, is sort of like just a warm, kind of a boost with a little hair. I'm realizing how much I kind of just sound the same on a lot of stuff. But if you turn that gain up a little bit, it gets a nice rhythm tone, like, you know. You can get sort of Stonesy. And then the red side is, I don't know, I guess I kind of use that a lot for slide. If you don't mind, hand me that slide that's sitting back there.
Oh, yeah, right there you go.
This isn't a guitar that I typically would play slide on.
Do you want a different one? I can.
Yeah.
You got a whole bunch of guitars.
355.
Rob.
Let's see. Let's hear that guy.
I wanted to hear this thing. I want to hear those PAFs sing a little bit.
Yeah.
I love the Telly, but let's see what that's
Telly's.
doing.
Yeah, we love a Telly. We love all of it. Now, but like if you get into a little bit of slide, like.
Oh yeah, that's great.
It's just perfect.
Yeah. Now, what slide are you using?
Oh, okay. This is the rock slide. I just recently discovered this. I don't know if you're like this. How many slides do you think you own?
Thousands.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how many I own.
Yeah.
I mean, I have tried so many different things, and I always kind of came back. I used to use this Chorus Eden bottle, Dwayne style slide.
Right.
It was a real one, and it has a great tone to it. But it was too big always for my fingers, so I just struggled with it for years. Well, this company makes these cool slides that have these sort of ergonomic features. I don't know if you can see this, but they round that out so you kind of, that's where you wear it on your knuckle, so you can actually bend your finger and it's not sticking way up here.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a little indent here on the side where I'm not good at this, but it is there. You can kind of hold it in place with your adjacent finger, I don't know. As soon as I played it, it just solved a lot of my issues that I had to work around all the time to play slide. Like, it doesn't go flying off my fingers when I go back to playing chords or lead, regular lead in the middle of it. It's snug. I don't know, man. It works for me, and I'm really happy that I found out about this.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Anyway.
And it's as similar as some of these sound. When you've got headphones on, and you're really, that's the thing. They sound similar with your cabinet in the other room, but I'm sure that you get that whole nuance thing. When you're
definitely
in your environment.
Yeah. Like, this is very strange for me, for my sound to be like away from me.
Right. Usually it's in your head.
Yeah. Right. But that's the basic drive part of this pedal board.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool to
Yeah.
have all those different flavors.
Yeah.
Okay, and then over on the left side, it's the weird stuff.
Yeah, the more the color stuff, I
Yeah.
guess. So I have this Electro Harmonix Pog 2, and you know, I mean, I always I don't use it all that much, but there's I have a bunch of different sounds kind of programmed in there, but there's one that I use and it sounds better than the newer versions to me. I would love to find something smaller that did this the same way.
Right.
But it just I haven't found it yet.
Well, let's hear that
Okay, so-
magic weird tone.
Okay, all right, here it comes. And this is a sound that at the beginning of, if anybody out there knows the Lainey Wilson song, Things a Man Ought to Know.
Oh yeah, everybody knows that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't take
It's
that.
a big hit.
Yeah, a big hit. So the beginning of that song, everybody thinks it's a keyboard.
Yeah.
So, but it's
Oh wow. That's cool.
and that's just 2 octaves up. You
Yeah.
know, it's like this way up in the stratosphere. So, in a chorus, if somebody, you know, we have keyboard players on every session most of the time,
Yeah.
so they're usually taking up that part of the mix.
Yeah.
But when they're not, and there's like a nice, you know, like
Yeah,
you
that's
can
cool.
get way up in the stratosphere
Right.
and have this nice, cool, like little texture. So I've used that sound on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Like I said, I wish I could find something. That's most of what I use that pedal for.
That's cool. Well, it's funny. I did the CMT Awards with Lainey when that was her first
Yeah.
single. It
Oh,
was the first one
okay.
she played, and we just had the keys kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah, I
you know,
didn't do it.
I've
Yeah.
watched that happen on award
Yeah,
shows. Maybe
yeah.
it was the one you're
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
They think it's a keyboard. I love it.
Yeah, I think our
love it.
B3 did
Yeah,
something
yeah, yeah,
weird
yeah,
up there.
yeah,
I'm like, close enough.
Yeah. Well, it is close enough. I mean, really. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
But that's that. And of course, I've got the EQ pedal. That's one of the best pedals ever made. It's so
Yeah.
important.
No, and you've got the Analog Man mod to it, right?
Yes.
So they, I don't know what they do, but I know that's a very common mod. I've got the pre-mod version of that,
Yep.
which is very noisy, and
Yeah.
maybe that's one of the things they fixed.
Yeah, it is a little less noisy. It's funny. I got onto this graphic EQ pedal very early on. When I was probably like 18 or something. I don't know why. I don't remember anything about that, but I got it, and the amount of gain you can get with that slider.
Oh yeah.
It was like, I didn't know that like people like Eddie Van Halen were using these to
Yeah.
boost their signal or whatever. It just like all of a sudden I sounded a little bit more famous. It was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously I shaped the tone drastically, but I have 400 boosted here. I've started to a friend of mine, Chris Donegan. He's another studio guitar player, and Justin Niebank. We both work with that engineer a lot, and like, okay, what frequency should we be boosting for solos? Like, which do you want, or what do you boost when you mix stuff? And he was like, 400. Before he could
Really?
even finish the sentence. Yeah. Which I would not have thought. I would
No.
have thought it would have been closer to
Mids, yeah. I would have
He was
thought-
like 400.
Wow.
And so I've been trying that a little bit, and I'll be damned if he wasn't right. Like,
Wow.
in the headphones, you can really hear the solo has a lot of command in that frequency. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's his thing.
Yeah.
But I do all kinds of crazy stuff with this. Like, I like to really dump a lot, like only mids, and like do like a part that's like, let me turn it on. Or like if you want to get like sort of in like a more of a like.
That's cool.
That kind of thing.
Have you ever tried the one up, one down dobro thing.
Oh, what is that?
It's just like that. You go like one all the way up, one all the way down, and
All the way through?
all the way through, and it's weirdly dobro-ish. I don't know. Try right now. Let's see what it does.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
oh my God, you're
Right? Yeah, it's. I run a dobro through it a lot to make it sound like a dobro. Yeah, right.
I mean, that's obviously done with slide, but well, I'm never changing it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, very versatile.
so there's that.
Weird pedal.
Yeah. And then we go to, I guess, probably this Boss vibrato pedal, which you've already heard me use a couple times throughout.
Yeah, man.
and
That's so cool. And that's the Waza.
That's the Waza version.
Yeah.
I have an old one at home, and they do have a little bit of a hiss to them. And
Right.
I think that this sounds exactly like it. Now, I got onto this because, you know Al Anderson from NRB?
Yeah, of course.
So he uses these pedals a lot, and we're Lonnie Mack freaks. And Magnetone was the way Lonnie Mack got that sound, those Magnetone amps. But this is that in a box. But it does a lot more. I mean, I used it on the slower speed. You can hear that waver.
Yeah.
But if you want to get into Lonnie Mack,
Yeah, right.
and you're off to the races with that, which, I love that. Okay, then we go to, I've got the Strymon Timeline pedal. That is, I've had those, I bought these, this is probably from the first run. I as soon as I saw this pedal was coming out, at the time, it was so important to have a delay pedal that was in time to the BPMs of the track.
Right. Yeah.
And this was the easiest thing that I could do that with because it has a BPM display. And you can pick the note value and all this stuff. So there's no margin for error on that kind of music where everything is so locked to the grid or whatever, But nowadays, I don't even think about that very often. And a lot of times, the trends have changed.
It was so unforgiving. And I think it's when people were mixing, like engineers were mixing with their eyes rather than their ears and lining everything up. I mean, it's strange when you hear yourself on a record and it doesn't sound like the day you left the session. It got a little less greasy. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like I'm saying something bad. I get it. It's pop music a lot of times. It's not the personality of how we all groove isn't a lot of times the most valuable thing on that kind of music, and they lock things to the grid, and that's whatever they need to do. But nowadays we're kind of getting back to a little bit more organic feel, and so a lot of times I'll ask them what the tempo of the song is just to make sure I'm not I don't have a delay that's faster than the tempo. I like things that lay back, so like if they tell me, oh, we're at 82 or whatever, I'll dial it back to like 80, and it's just kind of this thing that washes away better in the background of the track. I don't know.
Right.
It's kind of a more of a melty sound.
It is interesting though that trend. Like I remember when we did Steve Lukather's Rig Rundown. Arguably one of the greatest studio players of all time. I mean, just an amazing talent. And his rig, he had, I got a short delay and I got a long delay.
Yeah.
And he didn't worry about it. I'm like, God, okay.
Yeah, well,
what am I worried about?
I mean, and like certain, like if I've got tape echoes, so at home I don't worry about this, but I can't be taking those things all over the place. You'll show up and it won't work. Or a deluxe memory man. Those things, the delay time isn't as important because they have a way of melting into the sound and not creating this super rhythmic thing that distorts the tempo for a pop track.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. The Strymon, I know it's on everybody's board. I know everybody uses it, but we use it because it gets there. It gets the results quickly, and it does sound good. You can get as weird as you want with this box. So there's that. And then we go over to the Strymon Mobius, which I think is, I love this pedal because the phasers are great, the flangers are great, the chorusing is great, the tremolos are great. I mean, there's all kinds of weird, freaky stuff you can do with this too. The Leslie sound is great.
Huh.
I mean, to me, if you get, this is like, let me dial it to where the switch will do the slow, change the speed. It sounds realistic.
Right, it ramps up and ramps down.
It does it kind of realistically. I have a real Leslie cabinet at home, and this kind of, I feel like this gets as close to that as you can. Nothing's exactly like that. I don't want people to think that I don't know the difference or that there isn't a difference. There is, but this isn't, however many hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
And it fits, and you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we go over to the Strymon Flint reverb and tremolo pedal. I love the tremolo on this. I have a love-hate relationship with the reverb on it. But as I said, that would normally be a Line 6 M5, which is you can have the Line 6 M9. It's a single pedal version of all the things in the Line 6. Well, the thing I rely on that most for is probably reverbs, as far as in relation to everything else.
Because they've got everything.
It's got everything, and there's a lot of great things in the Line 6 stuff. I love the Line 6 M9, and I like the HX effects too. My new pedal board will probably have the HX effects on it. But this is something that I've just been using until I have all the new board, or in place of the M9 right now. It's got really good reverbs. It does, but the spring reverb, if I need that, I go to the Deluxe.
Right.
That's the real thing.
Do you find that you generally have, like when you're through the Deluxe, do you always have a little bit of verb going through it, or do you ever just leave it just dry?
Oh yeah, totally. I do leave it dry a lot, probably more often than not. But when it does call for some reverb, no one ever gets mad about the spring reverb in the amp.
Right. To me, it's just such a confidence builder to hear a little bit of it all the time. It's just so...
Okay, when you first put on headphones and tried to play, it's the weirdest thing because you have no room sound.
Yeah, right.
And all the guitar sounds that I love, typically, unless it's a direct sound, there's some kind of room miking involved.
Right, yeah.
And so we like to have that.
Yeah.
And there are great plugins that they can put, that I sometimes will have an engineer put that on just to give me a little bit of space, but they may want it dry in the final product or something. But it's such a blanket.
Oh yeah, man.
I love reverb, and if I play live, it usually comes down to what amp has reverb. That's the one I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can hear that. This. That's not bad at all.
No, great.
That's not bad. It really does sound good. And the longer reverbs and the more the 80s style reverb, if you want a real lush thing like this, you can get that. If you're doing a really long,
Oh yeah. Dreamy.
It does have some good stuff in there. I know there's a million other great reverb pedals. I have a bunch at home, but that's what's on here right today, this second. So let's turn that off, and why did this stop working? This isn't even powering on. Oh, the power cord got yanked, sorry.
Yeah. I'm no engineer, but...
Yeah, the Bluetooth on this analog delay pedal. Okay, so that's a little drastic on the. So everybody loves a Memory Man pedal.
So this is the Diamond Memory Lane.
Diamond Memory Lane. These have been out a long time. I don't even know if they still make these. So they probably make them in a smaller box, different thing now, I guess. This is one of the OGs. Nice modulation.
Yeah.
It's very Memory Man-esque. Not a replacement, but a good alternative. And
Probably way quieter.
Quieter.
Yeah.
And if you have the power cable in, it works every time.
Right.
So, great slapback.
Oh, yeah.
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 That
That's great, man. What a setup. Okay, so you just did your own album. You actually got to...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's hear it a little bit. Was it... Now, you're generally trying to give another artist what they want. I bet it's kind of fun just to give yourself what you want.
Yeah. I feel like I'm moonlight as an artist on my off time.
Yeah.
Because I've been recording music of my own, and I came to town writing songs. I mean, before I wanted to be a guitar player, I actually wanted to be a songwriter. So, it's always been in there to do that.
Yeah.
And, I've been recording for years, and I go back and listen through to some of this stuff, and it's like, yeah, I need to put that out. Why haven't I put that out? So that's kind of what's happening now. I've been on a real, getting back into writing a little bit out of nowhere. I mean, I don't really have time to do it, but I find that when I sit down in the morning with a cup of coffee, ideas keep hitting me, and I keep writing them down, and I keep having more and more songs, and then I find time with my band to record them, and they've stacked up, so it's just time to put them out. So I just put a single out a couple weeks ago. Another one's coming out next. Well, I don't know when this will actually air, but by the time it does, there will probably be a few songs out.
Perfect. It'll line up perfectly.
Yeah. So just keep the songs are coming now. I'm at a point of releasing stuff, so I'm just dropping song by song by song by song. There's probably either two, however you want to look at it, 2 EPs or an album's worth of stuff that's already there. But I'm even already recording newer songs that will follow those. I can't. I'm not happy if I'm not doing it. Is basically what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I don't expect to make any money off of it. I'm not looking for a career change necessarily, unless some weird thing came out where they said we want to sign a guy that's in his 50s. Let's go on the road.
Yeah.
I mean, if opportunities like that presented themselves that made sense, of course I would do it. But I'm a session guy. It's what I love to do, and I.
Yeah. Yeah. How great though, man. I mean, life is an art project, and how great you can do this and then do your own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
It tempers. Those two things temper each other.
Right.
I think one feeds the other. I think when you write a song and you sing it and you hand it off to other musicians, it gives you the other side of the perspective of when artists do that to you. Like, they're trusting you with these songs.
Right.
They have to sing over your parts.
Right.
I know that when I'm in the cans trying to sing and I've put too many guitar parts on there, I'm like, God, get rid of this shit. I got to sing over this, And so it gives me this. I think anybody that does do that, it can be an avenue to give you another insight to doing session work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rob, hey, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's so cool hanging with you and seeing how you do it.
I've watched all of these, and I really hate my voice on camera or how I look or how I come across, so I will try to watch this one when it comes out.
So leave some loving comments for Rob.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, if you want to hate on me, that's fine, too.
There will be a few. That's just what they do.
That's what they do.
Yeah. Hey, y'all, till next time.
Yep.